Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel and another video from me. Today I'll be recreating a video that I have made previously, but I stupidly accidentally deleted the video, which as you would imagine was very frustrating. It was a video recording a process for an ATC card and a card as part of a swap for visible image. So I'll be recreating those using the same products. The only difference with this video will be that I've got the items that I'm going to be needing to do this ATC and card. I've got them all out in advance. That's the only difference. Other than that, you'll hear me rambling in the same way that I do with all my videos. I have down my piece of paper to keep me in shot. It is a bit scruffy, but as I always say, I'd rather that than be wasteful. I am going to be using as my focal image Magical Unicorn from Visible Image, and just to add a little bit of detail, some of the stamps from De-Stressed. Now, it is an ATC swap, so I'll be working on an ATC the size of 2.5 inches by 3.5 inches, if you're unsure of what an ATC is. And I normally like to make a card to match, and I do like to match the card to the ATC as well, so I will be doing that in this video today. What else should I say? The card that I'll be working on throughout will be white 300 GSM Super Smooth, because I'll be colouring and I will be inking, so that is by far, in my opinion, the best card for both of those processes. Okay, so I will get started. So I've got a piece of card ready, cut down to ATC card size, and I've got a piece of card cut down for the card itself. So I will be creating an inky background using Distress Oxides. I will be using Villainous Potion and Blueprint Sketch, and then just for some subtle detail, Black Soot. That'll be right at the very end. So to do that, I'm going to be doing some smushing. So I'm going to get my messy mat. And actually the first thing that I need to do before I do that is to stamp the images. I'm getting ahead of myself here. So I need to stamp the images onto the card and then mask them off before we do some smushing. So I'm just going to get a brush for the masking. Okay, so I have a brush ready for the masking, and let's get to the stamping. So I need a stamping block, and my stamp. So I'll be using the main image from this set, which is the unicorn. Now the theme was to work in either landscape or portrait, depending on whatever it is that which mode you work in less. So for example, I work less in portrait. Many of my swaps that I partake in, I make landscape ATCs, and so therefore I'll be working in portrait. Hope that makes sense. So let me just move that messy mat just for a moment, and we'll come back to that. So I'm going to stamp in my VersaFine Onyx Black, only because I plan on heat embossing. So I'm just going to stamp up my image. And actually, let's bring that messy mat back in. So I want the image to have much of the unicorn's face and the horn, but we're going to offset that slightly and leave some white space down the left side. So I'm just giving that a good impression. Perfect. And then I'm going to do the same for the card, but I'm just going to wipe that area up. And then we can do the same. So what's going to happen consequently from duplicating this process, I'm going to end up with a card which I can put in my stash to take to fairs, but I'll end up with an ATC going spare. So I think for that I plan on partaking in another swap, and then I can swap it there. So just turn that over. There is a bit of an inky mark there, but I just dropped that stamp prematurely. There we go. So hopefully that inky mark we can cover up with our process. So I'm just giving that a firm impression, and hopefully that will come out just right. So I'm just going to clean that stamp up. And pop that back. And now I'm going to heat emboss both of those images. So just get some paper out in advance, and we'll do one at a time. So I want to heat emboss in clear embossing powder. Just removing any excess there. We've got a few little stray particles, so just removing those, and then just doing the same for the card. So just sprinkling that all over the image and then removing the excess. So I'm just going to pop that powder back in, and then we can get on with heat setting those images. So bear with me while I do this. Just warming that up first. The less time spent on the card, the better. I've got a really annoying little midgie fly flying around me, torturing me. He's taunting me. So that's that done. And the card is also now done. So we've got both of our images, and I'm just going to bring back in the messy mat. So, first thing I'll need to do is mask off the images. And for that I'm using the masking gel from Pentart. This comes in a tube. It's a different format to what I'm used to. I'm normally used to it in a pot. This one comes in a tube. So all I do is squeeze that out onto my brush and just brush it on in the usual way. So you don't need an awfully thick layer of this. And it dries very, very quickly. Okay, so I have both the ATC and the card masked off. So now I will come back to doing this smushing. So I think I mentioned at the top that I'll be using Villainous Potion for this part and Blueprint Sketch. So I'll start with the Villainous Potion. Just press that down onto my messy mat. I'm going to hydrate that with some water. And then when I'm sure that this is dried sufficiently, yeah, I can now push this down. So I'll leave that one as it is. Maybe a bit more over here. Yeah. Okay, I quite like those, but I think I will mop up a little bit of this one before we dry it. Okay. So I'm just going to wipe that area and then dry both of those before we go in with the next colour. Okay. Now I'm going to repeat that, this time with the Blueprint Sketch. So again, hydrating that with some water and then picking up in areas which we didn't cover previously. So it doesn't have to be completely covered. It's okay to have some white areas, she says, completely covering. But that's okay. No two will ever be the same. And I'm more likely to get more white areas on the larger area. This one. I do like this Blueprint Sketch. And the two colours together I think just work wonderfully. Okay, I think I'll leave that one as that is. So I'm just going to clean that up, just so we don't transfer any of that where we don't want it. And then I think I'll pick up that excess there, pick up a little bit of excess on that one, and then I'll just dry those off as well. So what I'll now do is, oopsie daisy, I'm going to remove what I can of the colour from the masked area, because when we come to peel the masking fluid off, we don't want that smudging. And then transferring onto the image underneath. Although it's not a big deal, we're going to be colouring in similar colours anyway. So the next thing I'll do is stencil. Now I can't find, I'm just going to look for that stencil, bear with. Yeah, here we go. Here we have. I thought I had everything out in advance, but I did forget the stencil. So what we're going to do here is now add some detail using the stencil, which is Supernova. So because I want them to be fairly similar, I'll use the stencil on both of them in the same manner. So I'll do it offset so that the circles the detail is coming in from the right hand side. So I'll do that using Villainous Potion. And just going over that entire ATC, not pressing too hard. There we go. So that's that one. And then in the same way, coming off from the right hand side, just going in the direction of the left, but leaving some area down here so that it's more to the right. So I'll just wipe that off. So just popping that away so I can keep on top of my housekeeping. Right, so the next thing, and I'll probably speed this part up, is to remove the masking fluid. So I'll speed this bit up. Okay, so there we have both the ATC and card, masking fluid removed, ready to colour. So I've just missed a bit here. it's quite hard to see where you've missed areas when you've heat embossed as well, because it has the same texture. So I will be colouring them with the same colour scheme as the background. So I'll be going with blues and purple. So I'll start with the blue. So for the blue, I'll be using B28, B29 and B69. Sorry, that was really bugging me, that fly. And the lightest I'll go in first with B28. So let me start. So what I do when I'm colouring hair, I pick sections of it out. As with all my colouring, I colour an area in the lightest colour first, and then I go in with the darkest to add the shade. So for example, here we go. So I've picked these two areas to start me off. So I work in the method whereby where the hair bunches, that will be where the shade goes. So that's where I add my darkest colour. And it's okay when you're doing hair for the flicks to be quite visible. We want to see the strands. And then I'll go in with the medium colour and just drag that out a little. Or the medium shade, I should say. Just dragging that out. And then what we have left in the middle there is the lightest area, which was the light colour that I put down in the first instance. So I'm going to colour up the blues and I'll come back and do the purples. So there I've coloured the blues, and now I'm going to go in with the purples. So sorry, just tidying them up before they dry out. I've had to throw so many of my Copic markers away recently. It really bothers me because they're not cheap, you know, they're an investment. So you really have to bear some consideration before buying each of those. Anyway, for the purple, I'll be using V09, V17 and FV2. So I'll go in again in the same way as before with the lightest colour, which is the lightest shade, which is V17. I'm just applying that colour down. And then going in with the darkest, which was the V09. And then the mid shade, which is FV2. Okay, and again, I'm just going to speed it up while I finish the ATC off colouring, and then the card, I'll also colour that up and I'll speed that up. So I'll see you again in a moment. we now have the mains both coloured in. I've actually missed an area here, so I think I'll go in and do that one purple. And then there we go. So in terms of colouring, all that's left is to colour the horn and his face in. So I'm going to colour the horn in the same blues and purples, but this time I'll be alternating between the detail on the horn, and I won't be adding any shade or highlight. I'll just pick two of the shades, one of each of the blue and the purple, and just alternate those. It's too small a detail to go in and worry about adding any shade or highlight. So it doesn't take long at all just to do those areas. And then finally the blue. There we go. And then that just leaves the faces. So the faces I'll do in a nice warm tone. So I've gone with the W's. I've gone with W1, W3 and W6. So I'll go in. Oh, that's run. That purple's just run a little bit here where I've coloured in there. Maybe I was a little bit too overzealous. So I'm just going in, applying that base colour down, so the W1 first. So just putting that down all over the face. And then I go in with the darkest shade and find the areas which I would expect to see shaded in this instance. So around the mane, across the top of his head, he's got some jawline detail going on here, and then just along the bottom. And I'll do the same here. So around the mane, just top of his head, and then across the bottom of his face. Then I'll go in with the mid-tone and blend those out so that we're not looking at such dark shades. And the same for here. And then finally, just going back in with the lightest. I didn't do his ears, I don't think, so just, and then blending that out. He's a handsome unicorn. Really love this image. There we go. So, what's left? I've got to add the sentiment. So this set comes with 3 sentiments. There is have a magical day, happy birthday and make a wish. And being that this is not for an occasion, it's just part of a generic swap, I'm going to go with make a wish, being that that's a fairly generic sentiment as well. So I am going to prepare both of the areas with the anti-static bag. And then I'm going to find an area where this sentiment sits quite nicely. So I think that one will sit quite nicely here. So let's stamp that in the same way as before. Let's use VersaFine and then we can heat emboss. So, make a wish, going in now, just letting that grab for a moment. And then I think we'll go with, I did it here on the one previously, so I'll go here again. There we go. So let's add some embossing powder. Making sure that I've just picked up the right one. Yep, clear. So heat embossing that in clear powder. Let's get rid of this. So just going in with a heat tool, bear with. Okay, that was quite quick actually, that. And then I think that was all I did for the ATC. So I'll mount that onto some black, I think. I just need to find some black first. So the ATC is just shy of 3.5 by 2.5 inches. The black mount is exactly 2.5 by 3.5 inches. So by the time it's complete, it is the correct ATC size. So I'm just going to go ahead and stick that down. And that will leave a nice little black border around each edge. Okay, and then I've also cut a piece of card down, again 3.5 by 2.5 inches, because I can't write on the black. This not only gives me a surface to write on, actually let's glue onto here, but it also gives it a real good weight when it's finished, a real good rigidity. There we go. So that's the ATC finished. So I'll be swapping that as part of another swap. And then This one I added some extra details with de-stressed. So I went with this black detail here and these diagonals. I did exactly the same thing in the first video, diamonds, not diagonals. So first of all we'll go with this grungy piece, and I just used my fingers before, and I went in this time with Blueprint Sketch. So just going in again with Blueprint Sketch and just finding some areas where, oh, I added it in black before actually, but I like it in the blue. Just across there, and then we'll just go down here. There we go. Just add a bit more here. There we go. So I'm just going to clean that off. And then maybe in, that's quite blue now, so maybe in the purple I'll add some other detail. So let's do this one in the purple, and I will mount that onto my block. And I'm just going to go in the opposite way to where these have gone. So if this one's coming down, I'm going to go across. And this one's going across, so I'm going to go down. And this one's also going up, so I'll go across. And there we go. So I'm trying to be really good and clean everything as I go. And all that's left to do now is to mount that onto the card. So let's get rid of that messy mat. So let's just give that a wipe. Actually, the last thing I'll do, which I haven't done, on the card, bring back the messy mat, is go around the edges with the black soot. So I'll use a traditional blending tool for that, and I'll just go around each edge, just drawing the eye in. Last edge. Perfect. And then all that's left to do, finally, is to stick this down. So just using Cosmic Shimmer adhesive. And I have left a small border around each edge. Small white border there. There we go. And that's it. So I'm just finalising this, sticking that down, letting that grab. we go. We have an ATC and matching card. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate that, and I'd also love if you could subscribe if you like my channel, obviously, but I'd love a subscribe also. Until next time, take care, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.